Mike,
Hey, how's it going, Richie?
going well, man. How you doing?
Great, man. Appreciate the time and I won't keep you for too long. But, dude, first and foremost, how's the heart? How's the health?
Well, I think it's going. I think it's fine, but I thought it was going fine before the last episode, so I don't actually. I don't know. No, it's going fine, man. I appreciate you asking, brother.
And, dude, I mean, probably easier if you recap it than I do, but kind of what happened. And I also was thinking, too, man, when you play Painkiller now, do you kind of think twice? Do you kind of pause for a second and go, here we go again? But if you wouldn't mind retelling that story for the audience.
Well, no, to answer the second question, no. I mean, it was one of those things. It wasn't the song. I don't think. I don't think it was the song that was it did it. It was just. It was one of those things. It was aortic aneurysm, it was a complete dissection. We have our aorta is a big vein that goes right from here right down to our groin, really, and it's a central vein that goes through the heart and down, through our body, and the whole thing split basically. So yeah, it was a big deal, and it happened halfway through Painkiller, which fortunately was the last song in the set. So if our set would have been any longer, I think I would have. I mean, I carried on playing, so I think I would have just carried on playing, and I don't think I'd have made it off the stage that night. But it was one of those situations where a few stars aligned that night. One of those, a few lucky stars aligned. A few chance things happened that saved my life. Really, things like that. Like we were playing before Metallica. Usually we play an hour and 40. That night we were playing an hour. Things like that. That if it would have been any different, I wouldn't be talking to you today. So I'm glad I'm talking to you today. So yeah, here we are.
You probably wish you would have been playing Breaking the Law or something. One of the shorter Living After Midnight versus Painkillers, the 2 minute song versus the 6 minute.
Well, I think it was going to happen anyway. It was one of those things that was probably in motion. There were some signs. There was some. I mean, I didn't know at the time, but stuff like fatigue. I had a backache. I mean, to be honest, I'm 43 years old. I mean, that's some standard stuff, especially 2 or 3 weeks in on a tour. You're going to be fatigued. You're going to have maybe a bit of a bad back from the guitar. That's normal stuff. So, but point being, there were some signs going on. So it was probably going to happen anyway.
Well, I didn't want to spend too much time, but wanted to touch upon the health and first and foremost. I mean, that's the most important thing. But dude, let's dig into the band, Elegant Weapons, and kind of curious, take me through the history of this band. Was it something kind of born out of the pandemic you had been sitting on for a while, or did the pandemic give you the time to really kind of focus in on these tunes?
That's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head, really. The pandemic did give me time to focus. Since I've joined Priest, I joined Priest on the farewell tour. So fortunately, almost 13 years later, Priest are still writing music. We're still touring, and the world's a better place for it. But, at the time, I had a conversation with Glenn Tipton about the fact that Priest weren't going to be around for 20 years, and so it was made, I would have been stupid not to think about what I'm going to do after Priest. So, as I said, we're still around, we're still making music and stuff. But I think I'm always writing music, I'm always putting stuff down. And the pandemic, as you said, gave me a chance to kind of have the time to get those ideas and consolidate them and see what I've got. Have I got an EP? Have I got some songs? Have I got an album? Have I got a band? Have I got, what have I got here? And that's what I did, really. So, and the rest is history. I called some friends of mine and asked them if they could be on the record. And it was evident to me that it was something that sounded different to Priest. It was something that had its own legs, and that was important. I think it would have been pointless to have another record that sounded like Priest.
Right.
They've always afforded me the opportunity to write with them and be part of the creative team. So I had that outlet with Priest already. It would have been pointless. So it's something that stood on its own creatively and sonically, and it was evident that I had that. So I pursued it.
Yeah, I think even just single guitar versus two guitar band right off the get-go is a different sound and a different style band.
It does, and we'll see what the future holds with that. I've always, with Priest for the last almost 13 years, there's been someone else up there,
Right.
and I've got used to that. We'll see how it goes. If we find out that there's a B3 Hammond on the record as well. If we need that live, maybe we'll make some changes. But at the moment, I'm enjoying having the flexibility of being a one guitar player. Obviously, that has its limitations as well. You've got to fill up the space. Sure. And if it becomes, if we need another guitar player or something like that, then we'll see what the future holds. For me, it's exciting to see how the band evolves and grows as a band. It's an exciting thing. How the characters of the musicians make up the band and what they bring to the table, and how we can create something unique moving forward while taking that DNA of the legacy bands that we're in and bringing it into the future.
So I'm curious, man. Once you had a collection of songs and you were working it, who was the first phone call to? Were you bugging Scott on tour, or bugging Andy? Who was it? Who was that? Or even Rex Brown was involved too. But who was that first person that you kind of showed him what you got?
Well, I've always promised Scott Travis that if I ever did anything outside of Priest, that I'd give him first refusal. And I was, obviously I'm grateful. I was fortunate enough that Scott was available to do the record. And Rex, I've known Rex for a few years, and I gave him a call, and I shot my shot. I shooted my shot. I shot my shot. Is that a thing?
You took your shot.
Yeah, I took my shot, and I didn't think he'd say yeah, but he dug the stuff, and he said he'd like to record the record, and I was blown away. Completely blown away. So he did that, and obviously Ronnie. But yeah, obviously Andy was a no-brainer as well. Andy knows where I'm coming from. I was raised in the 80s and brought up on 80s music, so that's who I am. Andy's the same, really. He was brought up on the same kind of music, but he's also a modern-day producer. Sure. So I wanted it to be a record that was obviously created from the DNA of that time period, but a record that stands up in today's world. And Andy was the perfect guy for that.
Totally. And talk about the decision to bring Ronnie Romero, and it kind of feel like a hidden secret out there. I don't feel like the world knows about him like they should, but was he the voice in your head, or why not you sing at all?
Well, I don't sing, fortunately. I put down some demo vocals and stuff like that, but fortunately, that's all I do. But when I was looking for a singer, I was talking to a good friend of mine and about who I could get in, and he mentioned Richie Blackmore's Rainbow and Ronnie, and it was a no-brainer from the start, really. Ronnie, again, like Andy, Ronnie has that classic feel to his vocals, but he's very much a vocalist of today, and he's like me, really. He hasn't been around too long, like Rex and Scott, but hopefully we can take the legacy of the bands that we're in, like Rainbow and like Priest, and carry the torch into the future.
Yeah, I mean, you guys statistically on a baseball card are kind of the same, but in legacy bands, like you said, but not of that age, a few years younger. So it makes perfect sense. And bringing Ronnie in, and with this being your project, did you write all the lyrics, or did he, or was it a collaborative thing?
Well, all the music was written before any of the guys came on board. It was just the nature of the situation. Being written during or brought together during the pandemic. It was all done before those guys were brought on board. But Ronnie kind of got the lyrics, and he kind of internalized them before recording them. And I think it's important for a vocalist to do that, so they can connect with the message of the lyrics before singing them, and in turn connect with the listener. So hopefully moving forward to the next record, Ronnie will be able to be a part of the writing as well. So I'm, again, looking forward to the growth of the band in that sense as well.
Loving what I'm hearing so far, man. The first few tracks, and I paused for a second on Do or Die and went, wait, is that a Testament cover? Just looking at the title. But there is, a matter of fact, a UFO cover on it, Lights Out.
Yeah, man. Massive UFO fan, massive Michael Schenker fan. I toyed around with a couple of covers, on the writing sessions of this record. And Lights Out was not only appropriate in terms of my history, but but it was just right in the dynamic of the record. It just fit in well. I could do something that was slightly different than the original, but still retained what I think is the heart of the original. And then obviously later on when we got Ronnie on board, obviously having that connection with Michael Schenker as well, with Ronnie singing with Michael, was even more perfect. So, but fundamentally, it was just I'm a huge Michael Schenker fan and UFO fan, and that's why I wanted to do it. So that's basically it.
And that's why you wear the Flying V, or play the Flying V, I should say, a lot. Schenker.
That's a big part of it. Yeah, I've always been a massive Schenker fan, and that's why I play the V. Obviously, joining Priest, why would you not get the V out again if you're playing? It's a part of the Priest's visual legacy, the Flying V. So why not? And it's become a part of, again, the last 13 years I've played the V and the Les Paul, but the V I've become really closely related to the Flying V as well. So, why not?
Looks good on you, man. And speaking of wearing the V on stage, what are the touring plans with Elegant Weapons? I mean, obviously you got to work around the pre-schedule and Ronnie's schedule and everyone else's schedule. So is there any thought to touring, or is it going to be one show off here and there? What's the plan?
Well, we've got a slew of dates coming up in June, July. In Europe, we've got some European festivals coming up. We've got some dates with Pantera coming up, and it was a priority of mine not to be a band that puts out a record and that's it. I wanted a band that toured. We played live. Again, that evolution of a band, the growth of a band that only comes from playing together live and playing for people. I think that's a vital component of a band these days. So we've got some dates coming up in Europe, and we're looking at some dates in the States coming up. After that, maybe if we can get some through the agent. So, but we've obviously primarily focused on the album, then the European dates, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, fingers crossed. That's a big important thing, I think, for this genre and lifestyle and everything. You have to play live.
It's vital for me, that interaction with the crowd and the way that the songs become part of someone's day. You know the way you go to like a Metallica show, or whatever it is, you put the song on in the car on the way to the show, and then you're singing the song with the band at the show, and you leave your problems at the door. It becomes part of your day and part of your week, and part of you telling people about that experience that you had. Those songs become part of your life, and just to have the chance to do that is a privilege and an honor.
Can't wait to see it live. Speaking of live, last time I got to see you live with Priest on the 50 Heavy Metal Years with Queensryche at Toyota Arena in Ontario in our market. Killer show, killer lineup, and probably one of the loudest shows I've been to in a long time, man. My ears were ringing for days after that one.
What? No, no, I know, man. That's part of it. I mean, it's loud, it's dirty, it's obnoxious, it's rock and roll. That's the way it should be in my book, and Priest have always been loud, dirty, and obnoxious. The motorbike is an embodiment of that sentiment, really. It's loud and heavy and smelly, a bit like me, really.
You and Queensryche, perfect package, man. I'm glad that you guys get two runs with them, actually.
Yeah, we did on that tour. I think it was earlier on in that year. We were with Queensryche, and we decided it went so well, we'd take him out again. So I think they're out at the moment. I might be wrong about that, but it just seemed like a great package. We got a lot of great feedback about it, so we just decided to take him out again with us. Yeah,
it makes sense. A two guitar attack for both bands. Classic.
No brainer. No brainer.
And speaking of Priest, I know we have a new album to look forward to. You're third with the band now, and I imagine like anything you do it, the more easier it gets. But imagine third album, even more and more trust and freedom with the guys and your input on the record.
Easier in some sense, you know kind of what to expect, but on the other side of things, it becomes harder. You got to match what you did before. You got to make another record that's better. Better songs, better production. How do we make this better played? So it raises the bar. Especially the last record seemed to connect with a lot of people around the world. It was well received by a lot of people. So how can we make a record that's better than that one? That's the goal going in. So it's harder in some senses as well.
And, obviously Andy in the band and behind the board, but does he bring in a lot of riffs, or do you kind of shoulder a lot of that responsibility? And then Glenn too.
Well, Andy doesn't contribute on a writing sense. He's purely, Andy stepped in for Glenn on a live sense, and then he's part of the production team for the record. So it's the same as it's always been. In terms of the two guitars, me and Glenn, and before that it was KK and Glenn, and obviously the vocalist was Rob. It's the same with this. Glenn's been able to contribute on the writing as well. Fortunately, obviously he's got some challenges with the Parkinson's, but his brain's still intact, so he's been able to contribute on that level. So we've been very lucky. Great.
And probably next year at this point, the album coming out?
Well, we haven't got a date yet. We're almost finished the tracking, the recording of it, and then we've got to mix it, we've got to master it and stuff like that. Then obviously it's the actual manufacture of the record, so we don't know how long that's going to take. That's out of our hands, really.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be too long now. We're excited to get it out to the world.
Can't wait to hear it, man. Last couple of things I wanted to hit you with. I don't know if a lot of people know it. I think it's super rad. Your father-in-law, George Lynch. Do you is the guitar around every family meal? Thanksgiving, you guys got the guitar around the neck at the table?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a big kumbaya at the dinner table. No, I mean, George is one of the hardest working guitar players I know, man. He's always doing something. He's always releasing something or gigging somewhere. And he's 60 something now, so he's he's setting the tone. You can't retire anymore. There's some of these cats, Tony Iommi, George Lynch, there's a lot of them out there that, you used to be able to retire at 64. Nowadays, you got to keep going. I'm only joking, of course. But George is a great guy, very creative, and he's a very unique guitar player, so you can learn a lot from George.
Do you guys sit around and play a lot, or not so much? Not as much as we would think?
Well, George, obviously, we live in different states, so
sure.
But when he comes over, we talk a lot about guitars. We usually end up swapping gear, so I'll borrow something off him, and he'll borrow something off me. But yeah, we'll noodle a bit together. But obviously, it's only as and when he can make it, or we can make it over to see him.
Sure. And you guys are both on the road and touring and all that, but. Great stuff. And last thing I got for you, Richie, we're an old school radio station. We do mandatory Metallica every night at 10 p.m., which you're going to be a part of. And you talked about touring with Metallica, obviously a fan, the Flying V. I mean, Kirk and James have used that over the years. But talk to me about Metallica. When did you discover them? What was kind of your entry point? How did you discover them?
I think it was early teens, when I was getting into heavier music, stuff like Painkiller. I was introduced to, the Painkiller record, stuff like, I can't remember if it was Master of Puppets and Justice for All. I just remember that syncopated, heavy stuff from Metallica. And obviously, as you said, the Flying V, James Hetfield is one of my top 5 guitar players. A lot of people, it's lead guitar players, but one of mine is Hetfield. The way he crafts and plays riffs. Sorry, can't even speak properly. And obviously, in the early days, he played that White V. And just a massive influence. The way he is for me, the integrity of Metallica. You know what I mean? He's the front man, the integrity, the mouthpiece. And I'm a huge Metallica fan. Obviously, the new record come out. I haven't actually heard all of it yet. I'm excited to hear it. I've heard some of the singles that they've released. And they're doing that thing now where they're, releasing a video for every song, and it really creates a connection to each one. So yeah, they've always been a band that goes against the grain. And I've admired them for that, but love the music, always be a Metallica fan.
And all the down picking, right? That's what Hetfield's always known for, the down picking.
Yeah, I could never do that. I always look for ways of getting around it, and making up excuses why I couldn't do it. And I don't really have an excuse, except that I'm a lazy boy. So, I can't do that down picking. But no, he's a master at it, and it definitely creates a sound for them.
And what tune can we play for you on Mandatory Metallica?
Wow, I would say let's play Damage Incorporated.
Oh, yeah. Anything off the Master of Puppets, that's their masterpiece. Flawless.
Yes, sir. You can't beat that stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for the time, Richie, and can't wait for the album and the tour.
Thank you, brother. Take care now.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye now.